Your brain is wired to avoid discomfort, chase pleasure, and conserve energy. That kept babies alive, but as an adult, it's what fuels stress, self sabotage, and stagnation. Being a grown up isn't about grinding, it's about leading yourself with clarity, curiosity, and commitment, one action at a time. Let's talk about what it really looks like and how to start practicing it now. So, Dr. Teplow, how do I not be a baby?
What a great question. I was reflecting on that question and I realized that a while ago we actually wrote a blog and I think we might have even had a podcast that says act like a baby. And that
Ah, we did, yeah. We'll link the notes.
I think it's great because just reminds us that every coin has two sides. There's a front, if there's a front, there's a back. And so we said, act like a baby. Do you want to be resilient? Then don't act like a grown up, act like a baby. Just be curious, go after it. And I do have to say that both act like a baby and don't act like a baby were brought home to me all last week when I did take care of my three grandchildren, all of whom are under 3.5. So I had a 4-month-old, a 2-year-old, and a 3.5-year-old. And I just can't say how much act like a baby and don't act like a baby apply, because act like a baby means be curious. Don't worry what people say. Don't beat yourself up. You can fall flat on your face a billion times, but that's the way you'll learn how to crawl. And so that's act like a baby with that curiosity, that openness, that non-judgmental. At the same time, when you get to be 3 or 3.5 and you don't get your way, then you have tantrums and you fall apart and you have meltdowns, et cetera, et cetera. And that's where that's where it's not productive. It doesn't work to be a baby. I just think this is a great metaphor. Ask yourself, when is being a baby appropriate and when do I need to grow up? And yeah.
Yeah, and it's not. I mean, we're using the baby as a way to enter into this conversation, but like you said, it's using what works for you in the moment that you're needing to apply it. So the curiosity and don't take things personally. Those are help with psychological flexibility and being able to grow. And then at the same time, we have don't be a baby, because it can lead to stress and anxiety, and that's really what we want to talk about today.
Yeah, exactly. So the don't be a baby is that don't recognize, be open and aware of those primitive either defense reactions or the expression of kind of primal need. You're hungry, you want to conserve energy, safety. At the same time that there's a baby in all of us that says, I don't want to feel that pain. I don't want to experience this sensation or this unpleasantness. I don't want to do homework. I don't want to, I'm too tired to do the report. I don't want to exercise. Eating ice cream would be more fun than eating spinach, whatever. That's the baby when we're going after those immediate, very transitory rewards. And so being a grown up means, you said, Glenn, having the psychological flexibility to recognize what are those more enduring values than just instant gratification?
Yeah.
And so what happens with grownups, and I think this applies also with don't be a baby, that you see a lot of parents being, don't be a baby, stop crying. And so what happens then is that we shut down our emotions and we assign those emotions. This is bad. This is good. But when you shut down emotion of any sort, you're shutting down emotion of all sorts. And so if you deny that feelings of unpleasantness or challenges or whatever, then you're also shutting down and numbing yourself to joy, and to a more, enduring pleasures. So what's important is to be aware and open to all of the range of experience and emotion, and then act in the service of your values.
So how can we go about doing that? Like, what would be some actions that we could go to
Yeah,
help
I think
help us
that's
be a grown up? Yeah, like what kind of
how I
stuff
would
should
be
we
a
do?
grown up. Well, let me tell you,
Yeah.
there's some tactics and strategies. I also would like to just mention, so what are those qualities? We said, curiosity, it's that insatiable curiosity, all being open to learning and exploring new things. That's kind of being the baby. But curiosity is also a part of being a grown up, being open-minded to explore and understand rather than imposing immediate judgment on things. So that's one thing, having a clear understanding of yourself and your goals, having compassion and, compassion for yourself, not beating yourself up, believing in yourself, having courage to face your fears. So babies, if they're afraid, it's just like, I don't know. Most, if you're a baby like my 2-year-old granddaughter, she has no fear, feeling a sense of belonging, recognizing the enduring value of being connected to other people, having kind of inner peace and resilience, and being able to express yourself in ways that are unique to you and finding new solutions. That's all part of being a grown-up. So, first thing is being very clear about the person that you want to be. And asking yourself, what would the grown-up in me do in this situation? So you may have those feelings of, being pissed off at somebody.
Of course.
And
Yeah.
yeah, right.
Of course, yeah, it's natural, and I think that's something that's interesting that we continue to go back to with our clients, and that they continue to tell us is that it's that when we ask these questions, that the that they struggle sometimes with this thing is knowing what you stand for and your values, because sometimes we don't ask ourselves these questions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think the question is, who do I want to be? And how do you help yourself do that? Think of, somebody who's really important to you, that you want to, who you want to see, who you want to see, look on you with favor, or be a model for. If you're driving the car, you're not going to scream expletives at a guy who cuts in front of you if your child is in the car or your boss is in the car, right? You
Right,
want to
right.
be that best version of yourself. It's like, okay, who's watching over me or who's seeing me? That's an external motivation.
Yeah,
And then we want to internalize, wait, who am I to myself? Who's that best version of me that I want to be? And if you can, be open to that emotion that you're experiencing, catch yourself, and recognize you have choice, right?
yeah. And then that's what's so interesting with our clients is they'll say that to us. They'll say, I've never asked myself that question, and then they don't have an answer, which is good because obviously they're exploring it. But that's why that externalizing becomes a helpful tool,
Yeah.
is because you can say, okay, now I have a frame of reference that it's easier for me to. So if you never asked yourself that kind of question, that frame of reference really really helps, because immediately then people think, oh, okay, then this is how I would act.
Yeah. And I think you bring up something good, that often in our trainings, in our group coaching, in our podcast, we're posing questions that people say, well, I don't know. It's sort of an immediate, knee jerk kind of, I don't know. It's the, I don't know. I've never thought about that. And that's good. If you don't know, it's good. Why? Because it says that you haven't thought about it. And psychological flexibility means that you have a lot of perspectives that you can it's like many facets of, a diamond or something. There are many different ways to look at the same situation. So if you're hearing us ask a question, you say, oh, I don't know, good. And then take the time to reflect on it.
Yeah. So let's go back to that. As we're going to talk through, what are these characteristics that we were talking about?
Right. So, the characteristics of clarity, of purpose, know what your values are, who you want to be, that you recognize you have done good things in your life. When it comes to emotional regulation or psychological flexibility, there are times when you have been able to make a choice, seen multiple perspectives. So appreciate what has worked for you, even if it's just fleeting or for a moment. You caught yourself from blowing up. Okay, you blew up in the end, but you caught yourself and said, oh, I'm really pissed off, or that really pisses me off, or I'm feeling that sense of being, anger, rising in me. That is a step towards better emotional regulation, emotional mastery.
It's
So
always in the noticing. It's always in the noticing. When you notice, that's actually the learning. And it doesn't matter how long you lost control of your emotional regulation. The moment you do realize it, that's the noticing. That's the power that you have.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And people say, I'm not a meditator. I don't have 15 minutes, too hard. It may be too hard. Okay. That doesn't mean that you also can't be mindful. So we get stuck, it's a baby they're curious about our world is wide open. And in that way, we want to be a baby with being mindful, because mindful doesn't mean you have to sit on a cushion for, X number of minutes a day or however. It means that you are in the present moment. So as you said, you're noticing what's going on. You're not just on automatic.
Yeah, and you're doing it all day. It's just something that you just need to be aware that you.
Yeah, exactly. And how do you train that? You could set a watch so it rings. I don't know. Glenn, you'll have to talk about, distraction, but, set a watch every hour. How am I feeling? What am I sensing? What am I noticing?
Yeah, I was working with a client, and they were saying how that about this noticing, and we talked about, I'm not really good at that, and when we explored the different ways that they were noticing, was that they did have a break there, the alarm that they set for doing these different things during the day. They had sticky notes on their computer, on their fridge. They had notes on their whiteboard. Those are all clues to help with the noticing.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, then don't say, why can't I get it together, or beat yourself up, but notice, when was this even a little better, or what was different about that day? And whatever you find, it's the rinse and repeat principle. If whatever you find, it's worth reinforcing and doing again. The other thing is, I would say lead the inner toddler. Just because you're feeling something doesn't mean that you have to react, and it doesn't mean you have to act on it. So once you notice, oh, I'm getting pissed off, or, I'm feeling sad, is then ask, and what do I value? What do I want to do about it? Sometimes I think in interpersonal relationships, we're having some conflict. We want to tell people off or assert in a way that may jeopardize the relationship. It's not that we are pleasing and appeasing all the time or compromising, but in that moment, we ask ourselves, is this going to serve the long-term interests of the connection I want with this person? Or am I going to, what is it, win the battle, but lose the war?
Yeah, that's a key point we brought up previously in I think last week's episode.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And then, so notice what you're already doing well and shift your self-talk. Listen to what you're saying. I always mess up, or she always pisses me off. It's, I notice that, I know right now that feeling of being pissed off is rising in me. Externalize as much as possible, or that, Priscilla pissed off is coming to visit, or whatever it is. Shift your self-talk so that so whatever you're saying to yourself isn't pervasive. That's always or never. It's, and it's also not permanent. Pervasive is everything.
Yeah,
Permanent
always.
is,
Yeah,
always or never, but it's those kinds of words, and they're very easy to use. So stick to what's happening in the moment.
yeah. So but that's really important. Let's be a little more deeper on that. Like, one of the things you used is you named something, rather than saying that I'm this. This is like, wait, I think you said Priscilla pissed off.
Yeah, Priscilla pissed
Like,
off. Yeah.
yeah, you name that. And what was naming doing there? What was that benefit
Yeah,
there?
so naming it actually creates some kind of linguistic distance, so that you aren't enmeshed in that feeling. People get really stuck. I'm angry, or some people will chuckle if they've trained with us before, her to say, we never ask, how does that make you feel? Why?
Yeah.
Because there's no agency there. You're a sitting duck for feelings. And what are feelings? You don't have control over them. They're fleeting, they're momentary. And as soon as we start being, that connected, that I am,
Identifying with a.
yeah, right, exactly. Then you're a little bit sunk there. And so it's how to see yourself, how to see yourself from outside the emotion you may be experiencing. So that's even why, instead of I'm pissed off, I notice myself feeling pissed off. So you are still
Mm.
an actor instead of the victim of the emotion that's arising.
Yeah, so these are all different ways to give yourself agency, and so you have the space to choose the action you want to
Absolutely.
take.
Yeah, it gives you a little pause. And of course, then also when we name that emotion, Priscilla pissed off or nervous Nelly or, nervous
Make
Nelson
you
or
laugh.
however. Yeah. It's adding humor. And, in humor, there's a lot of, research on what humor can do. But when you cannot appreciate humor unless there's a certain part of you that is relaxed and open. As long as you're uptight and, in judgment, sitting in judgment with yourself or however, pressuring, you don't appreciate humor. So being able to name that difficult emotion offers you that, it lightens it up a little bit.
Yeah, so it's like almost you're naming it to get the humor, but by naming it and getting the humor, you are actually relaxing yourself. That then obviously helps with the whole ability to have agency and making how do you want to step into this next
Right,
moment.
right. And you're separating yourself because,
Mhm.
the you is the question. I think is, who is the you here in this moment? And I think that's also who is the me that's in control or acting right now? Is it the baby in me that just wants the immediate gratification? Is it the grown up in me who has the courage to pursue my values in the presence of uncomfortable feelings or, unpleasant sensations or painful memories even. And that,
So what we want to what are any other final ideas or techniques that we could employ to be not to be a baby and be a grown up?
I think, stay curious and not judgmental, and remember what you're living for, what you really care about. Does it matter so much if you win this conflict, if the person, cuts in front of you? I mean, you want to be safe. But we're not talking in this way about survival, although sometimes it can feel that way. So I think that
Yeah.
is important to ask ourselves, hey, is there danger imminent? Is this a real danger, or is this some, maybe a primitive part of me that's just going, whoa, I'm being, triggered that this is going to be a danger. But to take a breath and ask yourself, what's really happening? What are my values? What's my interest here? Um,
Yeah, and that's again asking yourself those questions around what you value and doing it if you can't do it yourself, externalize it so that way what would someone you respect do, or how if you were with someone that you wanted to be your best self around, what would that be doing? That's a clue to your value. And the other thing is, what are your goals and what are your objectives? What's the war you want to win, not the battle that's right in front of you.
Exactly, exactly. And to remember that, we want to feel that connection with human beings. So how do we maintain connection and also get what we need, not what we want, but what we need to maintain that connection and still feel, that we have the respect we want, or, there's integrity, whatever.
Well, that sounds like a fantastic place for us to wrap up. And if this was helpful, hit like or subscribe, because we talk about solution focused strategies every week, or even better yet, share this with someone that you might think might have some value out of it. Because really different ways to help yourself and help others around you. Because when we make these changes ourselves, we start to impact the people around us. We also have a upcoming quest, the emotional mastery quest coming up that we'll put information in the show notes that goes into this subject more. And then if you want to learn more about our unique solution focused approach and book a complimentary coaching session, visit staminalab.io. And if you have any questions, put them in the comments below. We love to answer those. So thank you, Dr. Teplow.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for listening. Until next time, remember, you are your own lab, you are your own experiment, and you are your own best coach. Be well.